Welcome back to Smoky Ribs. This is episode 2 of my Beginner's Guide series. Today we're going to be focusing on a kettle grill, a Weber kettle to be more precise. I do have a couple of kettles behind me, but it's mainly just to show you a few small differences. Not going to focus a lot on that. We're mainly showing you how to set this up, how to run it, how to get your meats to turn out exactly like you want. We're going to get started right after this. All right, so here are my two kettles. The red one is a Weber kettle. The gray one, that is a S&S grills. I've just got that one recently. Now, there are a few differences between these two grills. Not gonna focus on that today. That's not what this video is about. The video is about setting up a kettle grill, how to dial in your temperatures, and how to have good results. But now with that said, for anyone interested in seeing a side-by-side comparison video, more of a Weber versus S&S, just leave it in the comments and I'll probably schedule that a couple of months out. I've got probably 2 months of things lined up here, so that would have to come later, but just let me know if that's something you'd be interested in. All right, so here is the inside of my Weber kettle. Now it's pretty grungy. This thing is about 3 years old, and I'm gonna tell you one of the best tips right off the bat is when you're cooking on this, put you a drip pan down on your bottom grate the best you can to help catch a lot of that grease, because otherwise you get it all gunked up. This isn't real bad. I did scrape it earlier. Got a little ash left in there, but you can expect that. You know, that's just the nature of it. So the reason I have this opened up with everything cleared out, I wanted to show you the dampers. This is your bottom ventilation system, and basically you can open and close this. You can have it completely closed, you can just have it cracked, you can have it wide open. So this kettle grill is going to be dependent on air being pulled in from the bottom. Now here in just a second, I'm going to show you the top vent. This is how you dial in your temperatures. Now if you're wanting to achieve a low and slow cook, I'll get into that, how to set the charcoal up, but you would want to start off with this probably about a quarter of the way open. You're wanting to keep those 250 to 275 degree temps, so you don't want a whole lot of airflow. Now if you want it screaming hot up to around 350, 375, let it go wide open. It's going to need all that air to get those kind of temperatures. All right, now let me show you the upper vent. There again, you can close it, you can crack it, you can go wide open. If you wanted a very hot grill, there again, you would want this wide open, you want the bottom wide open. But this is how you adjust the temperature inside of this pit. There is no knob to set temperature or anything like that. It's strictly done through airflow. Now one thing Weber did, and I don't know why they did that, you always put your vent over the meat, okay, always. And they got the thermometer way over here on the other side. And so the temperature that you're reading with that thermometer is the heat coming right off the charcoal. So you can't really go by that thermometer. It's gonna be a lot hotter than what you actually have over here where the meat is. So I would recommend going with a digital type thermometer. You would insert your probes up under the lid, or you can go through your vent holes. You would probe your meat. You'd put one at grate level to really see what's going on inside of this pit. So that's basically it in a nutshell. It's not rocket science, it's very simple. You have to play with your bottom vents and your upper vents to get the temperature that you're looking for. So let's put this into action and let me show you what I'm actually talking about here. Now this is your bottom grate. This one's seen better days, as you can see. And on this Weber, you can expect yours to look just like this after a few years. Now these parts are replaceable. What I'm going with is just a charcoal briquette. You can use a lump charcoal in this, or you can use a charcoal briquette. The lump charcoal is actually made from real wood, and it goes through a process where they remove most of the oxygen while they're burning it, and it becomes very hard. You know, it becomes charcoal. And the good thing about it is It puts off a lot of good heat. It actually burns hotter than the charcoal briquettes, and that's my choice a lot of times. But on this kind of grill, it don't last as long as what the briquettes does, and I'm doing a low and slow with this today, so I want the briquettes in here, and all I want to do is just bank them off to one side. And I'll explain why here momentarily. You can get real fancy with this and really stack these up in a real neat, orderly fashion, or you can just dump them in here like I just did. So I'm just going to take and move some of these around. We don't need it piled up this high. And this is what they refer to as a snake method. And like I said, some people, they really do these to where it's just perfect uniform. I don't do that. I don't have time for that. This is all you got to do right here. But you want this to wrap around just like I'm doing here. Some people refer to this as a snake method because it will be lit on one end and it will slowly burn around, catching other coals as it's going, and that's called a snake method. Minion method is also a style of a minion method. All right, so something just like this. I didn't get all fancy with it. Just move them around, try to keep it somewhat uniform. That's looking pretty good right in here. This will work all day long. Now, basically what I'm doing, once I put my grate in here, my fire is gonna start over here, and the food is gonna go over here, just opposite from the fire is. So as this fire moves around, you have to also move your meat, just opposite from it. Now this is what they call indirect cooking. The only time you would cook right over the actual charcoal is for a real hot type of cook, like searing a steak or searing a thin burger or something like that, where you would require some intense heat. For all purposes, primarily you will always want to go indirect, and even if you do go direct, you never want to put a whole layer of charcoal across this bottom. Always leave yourself a safe zone, a cool zone, to where if things get out of hand, you can move your meat over and not burn it to smithereens. So always remember 2-zone cooking. You got your hot, you got your not so hot. So I'm gonna go ahead and light this up. What I've done, these are called tumbleweeds. These are fire starters. There's different types. There's some wax cubes you can get. There's these tumbleweeds. They've got some made out of some sort of other material. And basically that's what gets it started. Let me fire it up. So one thing I'm gonna pay attention to before I do this is the position of my lower vent. I'm gonna go about 1/4 of the way, right in here. Now while this is getting started, you just want to leave your lid off. Give this time to get going good. It's going to start this fire right here in this corner. Once it gets established, from there, like I said, it will start slowly working its way across. If you're wondering what I'm doing, this is not about to cook. I'm just doing a chuck roast to make some pulled beef sandwiches with for our supper later tonight. Now, I want to add smoke flavor to this meat, so what I've got here, you can use whatever you like, pecan, hickory. This is post oak. And you put it sporadically, to where as this catches, it'll also get your wood going to where it starts putting off a really good smoke. Now the chuck roast is a pretty good piece of meat, so I'm gonna go on. Actually, I'm gonna put them close together. You want the bulk of your smoke within the first 3 hours. Then we'll put one more back here. That should be plenty of smoke. You don't want to overdo it because you can over smoke meat. But I think this will be just right based on previous experience. So we've been going a few minutes, and as you can see, I'm starting to get a little white ash on the corners. Just a few more minutes, maybe 5-10 minutes tops, all this will be ashed over, and at that point I can close the lid. Now I'm showing you how to set this up for a low and slow cook that takes hours. This chuck roast, I'll probably do an aluminum foil wrap on it to expedite the cook, but even with that, it's probably going to take 4.5 hours to cook. Now if I was wanting to get this up to 350 to 375, I would not start it like this. What I would do in a case like that is I would take a charcoal chimney and I would fill that all the way up. I would light it at the bottom, and I would get that entire chimney burning. I mean, to where everything's ashed over, and I would dump it into my grill. I would bank it off to one side to where I have my cool zone, my safe zone, and then when you put the lid on, you're going to shoot up real quick in temperature because everything's lit. And it might not be as much charcoal as what you see here. I did this purposely because I know it's going to be a long cook. I don't want to have to add charcoal at the end, so I shouldn't have no problem. This should just slowly burn around plenty of time. But that's the two different ways you would set this up for charcoal, really depending. If you're doing chicken and you want to go at 350 degrees, then by all means light all your charcoal at one time, throw it in there, bank it off, and then you're up and cooking right away. So for any of you that watched last week's video where I did the live fire cooking, I said in that video that you would be able to see how a lot of what I showed you in that video would transfer over into just about any smoke or kettle. And I was referring to the two-zone cooking, basically. The ventilation obviously is totally different on live fire because you got air surrounding it, you're wide open, and it's a different beast. It has to be treated a little different. But this, when you put it in a kettle and a smoker of any kind, now you're able to trap heat in here, and you can bring temperature up within the whole entire thing at great level, similar to what you do in your oven. This is basically turns into an oven with the ability to apply smoke to your meats. And they all work pretty much the same, and we're going to cover a lot of these. Your drum smokers, bottom vent, top vent. Even electric smokers have a bottom vent and a top vent. Pellet grills, they have ventilation system. Your offset, you have your lower vent and your upper vent. They all do. It's just, that's the nature of it. You have to draft air through in order to fuel your charcoal, the fire, and then from there you make adjustments to get it exactly where you want it. All right, so I'm going good enough. I'm gonna go ahead and put the lid on this. We're just going to choke this down about 1/3 open. Now, I was saying earlier you could take a thermometer and you could run a probe under here to monitor your grate temp. I have used this Weber long enough to where I don't need to do that. I know this thing's going to run around 250, 275 where I had this adjusted at. And so I'm just going to let this come up the temperature, and while that's happening, I'm going to take my chuck roast. I'm going to go ahead and get it prepped up and ready to go on here. Real quick, before I go in there and take care of that meat, I did want to show you one difference between these two kettles. Basically, this is just like a Weber, other than the bottom vent. It has 5 of the blades for the dampers instead of 3 like the Weber does. This has the slow and sear. This is where you put your charcoal. It also has a water reservoir that you can slide in here, and that adds humidity to it. It's an accessory that they sell for the Weber kettle over here, but it also fits this perfectly. It was designed, this kettle was designed around this slow and sear. This is how the company got started. So I don't want to elaborate a whole lot on that, but I will say one thing. I am quickly loving this. I have never seen a kettle grill be able to dial in temperatures as well as this one does and hold. As you can see, most of the charcoal in the corner is ashed over, starting to get some really good heat off that. It's time to put our meat on. This is the chuck roast. I added some Worcestershire sauce for a binder, just rubbed it down on both sides, ends, all the way around. Now the seasoning that I'm using, this is called Chop Shop by PS Seasoning, and let me tell you, this is a fantastic seasoning. Really designed for steak, but it's going to really kick up this chuck roast. I know it is. Smells incredible. Need to check that one out. All right, one thing I forgot to mention also, when you're setting it up like this, not only are you getting this heat coming over the dome, which is cooking this side and browning and giving this color, you're also picking up some radiant heat from this fire coming in on the side. So from time to time, you'll want to rotate this and flip this. It'll let you know what it needs based on the way it looks, you know, its appearance. Now the slow and sear, the trough I showed you, that the water trough that goes in there, that creates a barrier that stops and kills that radiant heat. So all you're getting then is that convection going over the top. So that's one advantage of that. But there again, this video is not about that. So I'm gonna save that for another video. So here we go. Let's go ahead and put our lid on. All right, I've been going about 2.5 hours. During that time, I have rotated it and I have flipped it, trying to get color on each side. I just checked it with the instant read thermometer. I'm at like 135, but I want to show you real quick what we're looking like. At about 160, that's when I'm gonna pull it off, wrap it in foil, then put it back on here to finish off. Let me show you real quick. All right, now I have flipped this one time and I have rotated a couple of times, just rotating it around to where all the edges darken up at the same rate because of that radiant heat I was talking about earlier. We're gonna let it go on this side some. Now once I get this dark mahogany color all the way around, and that should be around 160 degrees internal when I get there. Right now I'm at 139, so that's about 20 degrees away. Let's go ahead and close it up. If you're looking, you ain't cooking. Oh yeah, that's getting a really nice color on it. Look at that. I think I'm gonna go ahead and wrap. Last time I checked this, it was like 155 internal, and I'm sure we're around 160. I could check it, but I'm not going by that so much as I am the color of it. I mean, look at the back side of it there. That's just gorgeous. Perfect time to wrap. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove this and wrap it. We're gonna put it right back on here, put the cover on it, just let it go until it probes tender. Probably another hour to hour and a half, I would guess. All right, so we have been going 5 hours exactly, and I've had it wrapped now for like the last 2 hours, I think it's been, something like that. And I've just been probing, and I am probing around 212, but what I'm really noticing is just how tender this is. Look at that, man, just goes through like nobody's business. All right, this is done, it's ready. All I'm gonna do is bring it indoors, let it rest for maybe 30 minutes. Then from there, I'm gonna shred it. Now I'll inject some clips into this to where you can see just how well this turned out. And hopefully we got a nice smoke ring. And all we're gonna do with this, we're just gonna shred it up, maybe add some barbecue sauce and make sandwiches out of it. Won't be no taste test because this is not about the recipe or about what I'm cooking, but I do have to show you cooking with it to where you can see firsthand just how well the Weber kettle works. And I showed you how to lay the charcoal in there for this style of cook, a low and slow. So hopefully you got something from this. If you're a beginner and you're taking an interest in grilling and barbecue and smoking meats, then hopefully this is giving you enough information to where you feel confident to go get you a brisket, even try that. If you can fit a brisket on there, then you can do it the same way. Now, keep in mind, a lot more mass of meat, it's gonna take a lot longer to cook, but this is exactly how you do it. Now, you might have to add charcoal 2 or 3 times too. This would not be enough charcoal to do a whole pack of brisket. But with that said, you can do it. So I hope y'all are enjoying this series so far. Next week, I've got a special guest gonna be helping me out, and we're gonna talk all about pellet grills. So make sure you stay tuned to that. Until next time, smoke your ribs.